I want to emphasize something that you said because I think it's really important and needs to be said a lot louder. You shouldn't have to depend upon anybody's judgment. There shouldn't be any trust involved. You should be able to directly determine the voter's intent without depending upon anyone. And this Utah movement saying, well, we've got these experts to analyze this machine and the source. I know enough about source code to know you can't really analyze it. I don't care how smart you are. That's the wrong way. We shouldn't have to trust anybody in our elections. I just want to say that.
And you're right, and the best election directors in the world will Ion Sancho, being one of my favorites in Tallahassee, legendary election director, he will tell you, don't trust me. And you might have seen him if you saw HBO's Hacking Democracy. Don't trust me. Our system is not built on trust, it's built on checks and balances. If you can't see it for yourself, it doesn't count. We don't need a faith-based voting system. We need a system of trust, and let me get to your question, Dan, to vote by mail in just a second. I want to share with you just one really quick story. I was on the air in September of 2005 with the 13-year election director in Monterey County, California. His name was Tony Anchundo. And he was demonstrating his brand new Sequoia DREs on the radio. All right. We'll open up that for a minute. He was very proud of
how good this works.
And I said to him, well, and I had this paper trail. And I said, well, after the election, how large a percentage of those paper trails are you going to actually count? Have you ever tried counting any? Because they're very difficult to count. They're little toilet paper rolls, we call them. How many are you going to count to make sure that to find out if the machine totals are the same? He said 100%.
He doesn't know what 100% is.
Apparently not. Well, I give him the benefit of the doubt. I said, well, that's very good. I'm glad to hear that. What is your plan if the machine total is different from the paper trail total? Which one are you going to go with? He said, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Yeah. Okay.
That was my response. And I said, well, don't you think you ought to be able to, you ought to know that before the election? We've had problems with that sort of thing in recent elections where they weren't clear on the rules beforehand. He said, well, Brad, I'll tell you, to a certain extent, people are going to have faith and trust in their elections officials. In this case, that would be me, he said. And of course, he's been a 13-year election official, so, people love him out there. You have to have faith and trust in your elections officials. In this case, that would be me, he said, Tony Anchundo said in September of 2005. In April of 2006, Tony Anchundo was charged with 43 criminal counts of forgery, embezzlement, grand theft, larceny, on and on. He eventually pled no contest.
But these were not related to the election, right?
Well,
he might have still been honest with respect to the election.
He was using the
we just have to trust him.
Everything's fine. Yes, you're right. These aren't the droids you're looking for. Everything is fine. He had run up the credit card, the county credit card, and everything else. This is the guy who says I should trust him. And I've talked to these guys all over the country. They're the nicest guys in the world, some of them, and girls, nicest folks, but they're not to be trusted, and we should not have to trust them. And when they tell you that you have to trust them, tell them, I love you, you're great, you're wonderful, but no, I don't trust you. This is my election, not yours. Yes, sir.
Harvey was talking about the long lines and the DREs, things like that. Wasn't some of the problems here in Denver as far as the long lines related to the verification of the voter process? Or is it eligibility?
They used the poll book, electronic poll book.
Talk more about that.
Should not be used for that purpose.
Yeah, and the fraud that we've seen with some states as far as denying people the right to vote when they get there, not giving them provisional ballots and saying you're not registered or whatever. When I testified, I'll give you an example here before the state legislature, some of the things we found in eastern Colorado where people had gone down and registered to vote in time for the primary election, voted in the primary. When the general election came around, they went into their precinct and they had their little card with them that they got from the county clerk, and they were told, you're not on the rolls.
Which county?
They vote as Morgan County and Logan County. And they said, you're not on the rolls as a voter. They'd already voted for the primary, they had their card with them, and they let them vote by provisional ballot, and then a week later they got a postcard in the mail and said, you're not eligible to vote in this county.
We've got a two-prong effort that is almost impossible to overcome, but we're going to have to, which is the effort to keep people from voting. These are the bad guy Republicans creating, inventing this phony voter fraud stuff, and that's why we had those crappy e-poll books that were used last year, and you people in Denver here were all used as beta testers, for alpha testers for this software. And that's the same way the machines work. Don't believe what they tell you in that nobody tests these machines. When they tell you they're tested at the federal level, at the state level, they are tested nowhere. And nowhere was that more clear than here in Colorado, when the guy who was hired to test these, John Gardner, turns out he's got no computer background. The testing was pretty much, the certification testing was pretty much open the box. Are the manuals there?
himself in court,
Turn
and he
it on.
still has a job. That's what's bizarre.
And
I
he's
can't
still
understand
doing
how-
the same thing.
I can't
And
understand.
just to connect one more dot for you, the guy who, the woman who started the certification process with John Gardner out here was Danetta Davidson, your Secretary of State, who left the job to go to DC to be the chairwoman for the United States Elections Assistance Commission, which is responsible for certifying these machines for everyone at the federal level.
Do you know her?
Yes.
And at the primary.
Sorry
Yeah, as a
about
judge.
that.
She's crazy about me, by
At
the
the
way.
primary, both the primary and the final were such disasters last fall. I was a poll book judge. And after the experiences we had in the primary, which was a relatively low turnout primary, with the electronic poll books failing, I wrote a series of letters, sat down with the mayor, sat down with the election commission, which we had at that point, and said, this will fail. It will fail at every single precinct. It will fail at every single level. And I also have a computer background. And
Sure enough,
that
it
was
did.
part of the reason I was told to go away.
Those letters, the noise you're making, as I was talking about the video, okay? Get a blog if you don't have one. Go to blogger.com, get a blog, put the noise out there, put it on the public record. As I say, some jerk like Brad Blog may link up to it, and all of a sudden nationally everybody's paying attention to it, and we see that, oh gosh, they were told beforehand. They're going to have a tough time explaining that.